My story is actually one that started many years ago. I have been thinking about people's separation from family and friends and its effects, which we are now hearing so much about during lockdown. Looking back, there have been periods in my life, from early childhood at the start of World War II, when along with thousands of other children all over Britain, we were evacuated into the country. That must have been a tremendously anxious time for parents, seeing their children go off on a train or bus to people they knew not or to where. Today's story is not to do with any of that, really. That is another story. This is much less worrying, in fact almost trivial in comparison, but heartfelt at the time. My sister and I had always been together throughout our childhood. On the day she got married, after all the happy excitement of the day, it suddenly struck me, in bed that night, it hit me in a wave of sadness that this was it. She had gone away to live now in part of London, and she was not coming back, not ever in the same way. I was devastated, and I think I cried. Of course, we kept in touch with long, chatty letters. I had to get used to it. Contact was harder then. Not so many easy phone calls or car journeys, so we did go long periods when we couldn't meet. And as she had a family, and so did I, it was not easy to all get together. However, we did meet infrequently, as best we could. Mo, as I call my sister, her husband Len, a lovely man, was a Church of England minister, and he had contact with another one who owned a 72-foot-long narrow boat which could be hired out very reasonably. It was called Fulbourn and was at that time on the River Severn. Mo's family had already had brief breaks on it, and they invited us to share it with them as there was plenty of room on board. So began some of the best times of our lives. I remember being acutely apprehensive, though, as we stared down at the barge when we first saw it. It was way down below on the river by a huge wall. My heart churned when I thought of getting my 4 children down to it. And my sister had 5 young ones, so altogether there were 2 4-year-olds, 4 6-year-olds, that is 2 lots of twins, 2 7 to 8-year-olds, and 1 almost 10, and 4 of us. You could say that Fulbourn was indeed full. I need not have worried. In a very short time, we were all aboard and had sorted out who would sleep where. The children took to it with gusto, and we all loved the life. People used to ask us whatever we found to do, cruising at 4 knots on quiet canals. There was no lack of activity, believe me. We continued meeting up on these trips for many years, always moving on. Of the adventures or happenings, I instant only 2 examples, but I could recount literally dozens more. There was never a dull moment. At one stop, a lock, we all got off to look around and see what we could do. When we set off again, we chugged forward under a bridge and through a long, dark tunnel. We could just see a pinpoint of light far ahead. As we came out into the sunshine, we saw on the high banks teasel heads growing. We quickly persuaded Len to pull in and moor so that we could take some twigs home with us to make Christmas decorations. It was quite an operation to manoeuvre the boat to get close enough right there, involving reversing and back and forth to manage it. Triumphantly, we obtained our sea heads and were just trying to climb down through the ferns and brambles when over the hill above the tunnel came my husband and one of my girls, both with cross red faces, having been left behind at the lock. They had had to hurry to climb the hill and just guess whereabouts the other end of the tunnel was. They were not pleased with us, as particularly as no one had realised that they were missing. It's a good job we had mithered to stop for the teasels, otherwise we might have been miles away. After that, we had to have a roll call each time. My last example was one fine Sunday afternoon, coming downriver to try to moor below the cathedral at Worcester. It was warm and people were out in their Sunday best, strolling the banks and watching the boats. Again, the banks were difficult and it was a hard job to get anywhere near. When the passers-by saw how hard it was, several men took off their jackets and joined in to help, all giving orders. Mo and I managed to get the children off and decided to take them up and go round the cathedral. We did, and it was good, but the children wanted to go outside in the gardens at the back by the canal. Here a high wall separated them. We could still hear the men below shouting instructions to each other. It seemed everyone knew best. It was late afternoon and it was soon early twilight. The floodlights in the garden came on to light up the ancient walls. This threw up ghostly shadows of us on the sides. The kids found this fun. We thought we had better make a move, but one of my girls who'd been sitting on a bench suddenly found she had her knee trapped in the back of the bench and couldn't get it out. We tried everything we could, but she was wedged between the bars. We were afraid that they might close the back doors of the cathedral, so we sent the boys to get help. Several minutes later, they had luckily found a policeman who managed to wrench the bars apart and release her. When we finally all got back to the boat, they had to balance across an 8-foot-long plank bridge to get on. We never forgot that episode. These are just one or two examples of those times, but I think they show how little things can stay in the memory. Mainly, I remember such happy times when the two families bonded. Nowadays, if you ask any one of us what were the best holidays, the reply is always, oh, the full-blown years. So I think that now lots of families are storing up lost birthday dues, anniversaries, weddings, etc., ready to get back together and enjoy parties once this pandemic is behind us. We can have hope and know that these celebrations will be all the sweeter in the end and will be remembered forever.